probably would happen.
Absolutely. All right, Jason, what's going on, brother?
Hey, can you hear me?
I can hear you just fine. Yeah, yeah. Well,
Yes!
you made it. You made it.
It's like really kind of complicated sometimes to get it hooked up. But
I understand. I understand. What's your question for Don?
I'm glad you guys brought up the Hitler thing because that's even better topic. But because I've been I haven't looked deeply into that, but I've definitely been thinking it doesn't make sense, the story about his suicide and they found his dental record. It's like, that's it? That's what you got?
Yeah.
And why wouldn't he have taken a U-boat, over to somewhere and then maybe down to, Antarctica? Like that line of thinking is interesting.
We've definitely, we've talked about that before with Dr. Michael Salla, and then also there's the fact that there is a colony essentially of blonde-haired, blue-eyed, German-speaking people down there in Argentina. I mean, if you're going to start a new German colony, I mean, it had to start someplace, and people escaping from World War II sounds like a pretty likely idea.
Right, and get this, so. Obviously, in South America, they speak Spanish. Mm-hmm. Soros, the name Soros, S-O-R-O-S. It's what's it called? An anagram, or it's forwards and backwards. It's the same.
Yeah.
But also the
palindrome.
A palindrome.
Yeah.
If you take the S's off, the front and the back, you get SS. Obviously, the SS.
Yeah.
And what's left is oro, which in Spanish means gold.
I never thought
so
of that.
So you have SS gold.
You're right.
That's a lot of analysis.
Well, yeah, I start looking at words a lot and codes because of QAnon.
Sure.
So, and then they're obsessed with the occult and stuff. They're obsessed with what's it called? Where you turn things into gold.
Right. Alchemy.
Alchemy. Yes,
yep.
They're obsessed with alchemy. And then, with the story of Soros becoming basically a Nazi.
Yeah.
They turned him into SS Gold. That's how I think of it. Maybe it's crazy. I don't know.
Well, I mean, we know that's not truly his last name. I mean, I believe it's a slightly shortened version. Yes, exactly. Yeah. So he came up with that name. And, to be quite honest with you, I mean, I could see that happening. I mean, he's essentially using the entire world as his piggy bank and trying to turn it into, what he wants to see for the future of mankind, which isn't very good for most of us.
Exactly. And so, I guess for a question I could ask, have you guys seen, I put this in the chat, Zoolander? Because they hint at this. I
love Zoolander. That's a funny movie.
Yeah. They hint, it's all about the MK Ultra and using model actors that are MK Ultra to do these hits.
Yeah.
And that's how they do it, in my opinion. The CIA, so people would literally laugh at us because they're like, that's in Zoolander.
Right.
That's not real. That's so stupid. But
got to kill the Prime Minister of Malaysia. Don, during your research, did you do any? Did you touch on MK Ultra and the idea of people being mind controlled to commit these assassinations?
Well,
Sirhan, certainly.
Certainly, he's probably the most notable example of it. Yeah, exactly. I mean, I write about certainly all the programs that the CIA had in the 1950s, especially the MK Ultra program, the Operation Paperclip, which talked about Nazis.
Mm-hmm.
Had a certain number of Nazis like Werner von Braun, who came and basically ran NASA.
Mm-hmm.
You had Operation Mockingbird, which everyone knows about, the Mockingbird Media, which we see today, down to Anderson Cooper.
Mm-hmm.
Who admits he freely admits he was recruited in the CIA during college.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, there are lots of disasters. The MK Ultra program was real, obviously, and as you know, Sirhan is the most, I guess, their most successful example. But a lot of people think that Mark David Chapman showed a lot of signs of that as well with John Lennon.
Yep.
And I think reading Catcher in the Rye, which apparently was the triggering mechanism for him or whatever. But I think those two examples, I think, were probably programmed in some way.
All right. Excellent. Well, Jason,
I was just going to say, sorry.
Yeah, go ahead.
Real quick, and then I'll be done. So that totally just sparked also the South America, Cooper's mom. With the necklace.
Oh yes, Vanderbilt.
Yes,
yes,
Vanderbilt. Yes, the South American charm necklace.
Yeah,
and all that. And then there was a thing with even Shakira with the Nazi emblem on her tour thing that was used on the floor in the Nazi German castle. It's all this South American Nazi And then, of course, the FBI record that's been released that all these witnesses saw Hitler in South America.
Yeah. That has come up very recently. You know, Don, I've often said that the Germans were the true winners of World War II, because despite who signed all the treaties, I mean, we brought them all over here during Project Paperclip. They went into high level positions with top security clearances in the United States government, and then we find ourselves today. It's more totalitarian than ever, and once again, President Trump and the new administration trying to fight against that, and they're in their last death throes, if you will, trying to fight against him removing them.
Yeah, well, there's certainly when you look at things like that, you wonder. I mean, I'm probably the first person in decades that it takes on the Nuremberg trials. Mm-hmm. I have a whole section in there. I think the Nuremberg trials were just horrific, mm-hmm. and I think they were the antithesis of justice. But you have to wonder, because never before, until it had after a war, had the victors considered legally trying the losers. Mm-hmm. This is unheard of. Once you surrender, that's it.
Yeah.
If you ended up, getting some kind of, in this case, really there was no land. It was a typical war, which we've seen for far too long, where really since the War for Independence, where, we had an objective. We wanted to be free of British rule. The War of 1812 was the last war where we actually defended ourselves because we were attacked by the British. But other than that, all these other wars are just kind of, you're not really sure what's going on. Lots of people die. Mm-hmm. But up until this point in the history of the world, no one had considered, well, I'm going to take you to court. It's not enough I defeated you in battle, and then we're going to do something. And, of course, then they come up with this concept of war crimes, again, which is unheard of. What is mm-hmm. a war crime? It's kind of like a hate crime, kind of a modern, politically correct thing. But the idea that they hung some of the people, and they put Rudolf Hess, who, if anything, was a genuine peace activist. This is a guy who flew a peace mission to Britain and tried to end. He didn't want to go to war, and they ended up throwing him in Spandau prison for decades. Horrible conditions there, and they probably killed him when he was 90-some years old, and they claimed he killed himself. But at the same time, then some of these people were directed into the country under Operation Paperclip, and most of them went to NASA, and some of them also entered the OSS and helped form the CIA. So you have to question that. Why did some of the, and most people also don't realize it wasn't just the Nazis. We were fighting Japan as well. Mm-hmm. Emperor Hirohito lived for decades after the war. Mm-hmm. Nothing happened to him. And we never had, why did we not have war crimes trials against the Japanese? We didn't.
Yeah, kind of a unique thing. All right, Jason, thank you for your call, brother. I appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, we'll talk to you soon.
Bye.
Bye-bye.